All right, let's jump right in. Today we're going to unpack one of the most fundamental questions in Indian governance, that really intricate power-sharing dance between the central government and the states. We're going to get right into the constitutional blueprint that holds this massive, diverse nation together.
So, let's start with the huge question that the framers of the Constitution were staring down. I mean, seriously, how do you even begin to create one single system of government for a country as mind-bogglingly huge and diverse as India? Well, their answer wasn't simple. It was a really complex, unique balancing act.
The big idea at the heart of all this is something called federalism. And as you can see, it's basically a system of divided power. The analogy here is just perfect. Think of the central government setting the rules for the whole household, the stuff that affects everyone, while the states get to manage what happens in their own rooms, catering to their own local needs and cultures.
Okay, but what's so fascinating is how India does this. Article 1 of the Constitution calls India a union of states. Now, that's not just some fancy wording. It was picked for a reason. It really emphasizes unity, the idea that the nation is indestructible. Legal experts, you'll often hear them call this system quasi-federal. Why? Because as we're about to see, while power is definitely divided, the Constitution gives the central government, the center, just a little more weight. And that was a very deliberate choice, partly shaped by the trauma of partition, all to make sure national unity was locked in.
So here's our game plan for today. We'll start with that constitutional blueprint for sharing power. Then we're going to dig into the nitty-gritty of who actually makes the laws. We'll follow the money to see how that works. We'll look at the ultimate referee in this system, and finally, wrap it all up with why this is such a critical constitutional balancing act.
All right, first up, India's power-sharing blueprint. This is all about that framework designed to juggle two huge goals, unity and diversity.
And the thing to remember here is that this division of power isn't just some random list. No, it's a super detailed, meticulous plan that's laid out right there in the Constitution. It covers everything: legislative, financial, and administrative relations. For example, think about the All India services, like the IAS and IPS. They are recruited by the center, but they serve in the states. That creates this vital administrative link. The whole point of this entire setup is to build a strong, unified nation that also lets its diverse states have the freedom to govern themselves. It's a design for cohesion, not for conflict.
So how does the Constitution actually pull this off? Well, that brings us right to the heart of the matter. Who gets to make the laws? And the answer is laid out really clearly in what we call the 3 legislative lists, which you can find in the 7th schedule of the Constitution.
First, you've got the Union List. This covers all the big-ticket items, subjects of clear national importance where you absolutely need one uniform policy for the whole country. We're talking about things like defense, foreign affairs, banking, railways, stuff that affects everyone in the same way. And on these subjects, only the Indian Parliament in New Delhi can make the laws. Simple as that.
Next up is the state list. Now, this covers all the things of local or regional importance. Things like the police, public health, agriculture. It just makes sense for these to be handled by the states, right? Because they're the ones who really understand the specific needs and conditions of their own people. So here, the state legislatures have the exclusive power.
And now we get to the most interesting part, the concurrent list. One famous jurist called it a twilight zone, which I think is a great description. This is where both the parliament and the state legislatures can make laws. It covers areas like education and criminal law, where, it's actually valuable to have both national and state-level input. But, and this is the key, if there's a clash between a central law and a state law on one of these subjects, the central law wins. It always prevails.
So, just to quickly recap, this little table lays it all out pretty clearly. The Union List is for Parliament only. The State List is for state legislatures only. And the concurrent list is for both, but the center has the final say if there's a disagreement. It's a very clear hierarchical structure.
Okay, so making laws is one thing. But, as they always say, you gotta follow the money. Real power isn't just about making rules. It's about controlling the cash. So let's take a look at the really crucial financial relationship between the center and the states. The Constitution sets up a really detailed system for how money gets distributed. It all starts with both the center and the states collecting taxes. Then a special commission comes in and recommends how to slice up that pie. After that, key central taxes like income tax and GST get shared with all the states. And finally, the center gives out extra funds, called grants and aid, to states that might need a bit of extra help. Now, this system makes sure states can function, but it also creates a certain level of financial dependence on the center.
And the key player, the real linchpin in this whole financial setup, is the Finance Commission. It's established under Article 280 of the Constitution. This body is put together every 5 years, and its main job is to act like an independent referee, recommending a fair and equitable way to split up the tax money. It is an absolutely critical mechanism for keeping financial balance in our federal system.
So you've got laws, you've got money. What happens when the center and the states just don't agree? Who steps in to sort it all out? Well, that brings us to the ultimate referee, the judiciary.
This is where the Supreme Court and the high courts play a huge role. Whenever there's a fight over who has the authority to do what, whether it's between the central government and a state, or even between two different states, the judiciary acts as the impartial umpire. They're the final interpreters of the Constitution, so it's their job to draw the lines and make sure nobody oversteps their constitutional boundaries. They really are the ultimate guardians of this delicate federal balance.
And this idea was really cemented way back in a landmark 1963 case, the state of West Bengal versus the Union of India. The Supreme Court made a really crucial point. They said, look, India's federal system wasn't created because a bunch of states decided to come together and form a country, like in the U.S. No, it was established by the Constitution itself. And that interpretation has consistently backed up the principle of a strong center with broader authority.
So, let's bring this all home in our last section, a constitutional balancing act. And more importantly, why any of this complex stuff actually matters in your day-to-day life.
The ideal, what India is really striving for today, is this concept of cooperative federalism. The idea is that the center and the states shouldn't be seen as rivals, constantly fighting for power. Instead, they should be partners working together for the common good. A perfect example is the Goods and Services Tax, or GST. That took an incredible amount of collaboration between the center and every single state to get off the ground. That right there is cooperative federalism in action.
And this is where it all connects directly to you. This isn't just some abstract legal theory. The laws that govern our national security, those are made by the center. But the police force that keeps your neighborhood safe, that's run by the state. When there's a national health crisis, the response is coordinated by the center, but it's all carried out through your state's public health system. See, it's everywhere.
At the end of the day, the biggest takeaway is this. The system isn't set in stone. It's a living, breathing, continuous dialogue. Its success isn't just about the words written in the Constitution. It's about how those words are put into practice. It all comes down to mutual respect and genuine cooperation between the leaders at the center and in the states. So the real question for all of us is, how is this balance shifting today, and what does that mean for the future of India's unique federal character?